They're going to kill the love of my life.
Casey!
If I don't go back to what I was doing.
Our line of work is quite brutal and quite ruthless.
How far would you go for love?
You steal truck, bring it to me. Then you make your money.
Is it dangerous?
Of course it's dangerous!
Nicholas Hoult, Felicity Jones, with Ben Kingsley and Anthony Hopkins.
All this trouble, all this pain, for love.
Collide. Now playing. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning. This is Llorraine Neithardt, and you have reached Venus Unplugged. And what we're exploring in the next couple of weeks is the three shadows. I am a psychic in New York and a soul mentor. And what's happening here, which is all Venusian, Eros rocks the world and makes it work. So it's not just about romantic love, which people associate Venus with. But certainly romantic love can be a shadow aspect. Because as soon as we see their humanity or their inferior function, we're off and running. So this all weaves together. So before I start on the personal shadow, I want to share something that I was listening to yesterday, to Stephen Holler. And it's about alchemy. Okay. And so he was talking about this whole thing, thing in alchemy about circles and squares and triangles. And what he was saying, which just struck me so, like in the most beautiful way, kind of like that dumbfounded beauty, that bong moment. And he was talking about the creative matrix, and that the human is an unfinished being. And it is in this unfinished quality within us that allows for the creativity to function in us. And if everything was cut and dry, there would be no creativity. I was like, wow, yes. Well, that makes lots of room for transformation. Because I don't know we'll ever be finished unless we truly individuate, and then we probably just wind up on another planet. But then he was talking about the prima materia, which is the blackness. And people get very nervous about the shadow because it's the dark side of the self. It's the things they don't know about, blah, blah, blah. And so it all gets projected onto the other, whether it be the national shadow, which I talked about last week, or personal shadow, or the woman's shadow. But that black is the most creative color. It's also called the negredo, which is the blackening phase in the prima materia. And the prima materia is the creative energy that needs to be transformed. So I thought, well, okay, that certainly helps start accepting and understanding how creative the black is. People tend to pull away from it because, of course, New York City, everybody wears black. Black is all white. And so let's say you're in a room, and if you distinguish all the light, no light is coming in, and it's like a blackout. If you have any imagination, you can see all kinds of things in that room. And why is that? Because this black is neutral. As soon as the light gets in, you will see something else. And I thought that was very interesting. In this ancient alchemical codex, so often it's like, oh no, I just want the light, And it's like, well, yeah, but not a lot's going to happen there. Just want to go towards the light. Well, once you get beyond the light, guess what? We got the dark. So the black is the creative situation out of which the creative matrix, the process, then develops. So in order to really start a creative process, things have to be reduced to that dark creative matrix. And he gives this example of, so let's say you really want to have some big creative idea about, whatever you think your big creative idea is about, and but that first, it may be about life, it may be about God, it may be about the universe, it may be about your pussycat, and it might be a good idea to get away from the ideas that you already have. It doesn't mean that the ideas that you have are not false, but the fact that they are already there, as rigid structures to which you hang onto, nothing is going to happen. Because it was totally fascinating. I think the same thing is true in loving. We think we know someone, and we come in with our rigid thoughts and our beliefs and our opinions and all that stuff, and we don't get to see who that person is today. Maybe living with them forever. And yet today, there's something we never noticed before. Or put those thoughts away. Just put them on the side. You don't have to give them up. You can come back to them later. But to experience the person kind of in this way of unknowing. You see. So in some ways it's like blacking out the light in order to see the creative matrix that form develops on. So this is kind of alchemical talk, and alchemical talk is like up, out, in, and out. It's very interesting, but you have to spend a lot of time working on it. So I just thought it was brilliant that black is the most creative color, according to the alchemist. So there we have it. And now we're going to move on to what? To our personal shadow. That's the one we have. Now, to take full responsibility for our own personal shadow involves having some knowledge of our inferior function, or it also can be called the fourth function. So Jung created this, I think it was when he was working out his stuff with Freud, and he had his kind of breakdown. And I also know Tony Wolfe helped him a lot with this, developing this function, okay? And so this is just a limited, perspective here, and if you want to study it, go for it. Go deep into it and start understanding it. So Jung described 4 ways of mental functioning, right? Thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. Thinking and feeling he calls rational, in that when either of them are being used, we are making judgments. Thinking analyzes, feeling is the function which evaluates worth, whether the thing is good or bad. The other 2 functions, sensate and intuition, do not judge in any way. They are always perceiving. So with our sensation, we perceive how things are, whether within or without. With our intuition, we have hunches, sometimes kind of quantum leaps, which I do every time I start a session. I do a quantum leap through the soul, the person's soul. And so, with the intuition, we have hunches and how it might be, or we perceive inner meaning and significance. Now, because this is a very simple way of putting this, it's more complicated, but just so you start getting a hint. Just some breadcrumbs to get you out of the woods afterwards is the unconscious. Now, what's fascinating, all right, let's say that, a person of high intelligence, they're going to be aware, of the four functions. They're probably working okay. But there's always one that's a little less than, or one that they don't use as much. And we tend to use one function more than others, though we gradually can develop the use of all the others. But if you don't know it's there and you can't differentiate, remember, if we want to know, we need to be able to differentiate levels, energies, feelings, all these types of things. So, even those who have a fairly all-round personality, I guess, functions, okay, they tend to have a fourth function which is decidedly elusive. So, for example, we all know the thinking whose type, right? Whose feeling is so bad that they can unwittingly trample underfoot by their very logic what someone holds precious. So we know their feeling is off. It's like, how could you say that, you moron? It's like, what? Well, all I said was the truth. It's like, but that's sacred to that person. They hung the moon on that. But if there's no feeling, it may be true, but whose truth? It's the truth according to which function you're using. So it's very interesting to start to decipher this, and it's incredible in communication. Because whether we like it or not, we usually, dollar to donuts, get attracted to our inferior function. And we don't even understand what they're talking about. And yet, we can have the same exact values, but we're coming from a completely different place. And then the scrambled eggs of love begin. All right? Everything gets all messed up there. But intuitively, we know something. It's like, don't you see? The other one says, well, can't you hear this? Well, if a person is pretty much saying, don't you see this? I see it. That's intuitive. It's a perception. It's seeing. Okay? And hearing is a sensate function. One hears, one sees, and speaks from those places, and then you reverse it a little bit. What did you hear? What did you see? The art of communication. And this is in all things. Remember, 4 is the number of the creative matrix. Anytime you see 4, whether it's in a dream or just doodling in a 4, it's you're dealing with the earth, the throne of Isis, you're dealing with foundations, and on some level you're dealing with the alchemical stone. So there is no right or wrong, it's just the way of seeing. And we know the sensation type, who, especially if they're extroverts. And we have another level, introvert and extroverts. Well, they function with it in a different way. Only trust their senses. And they just gape in amazement at the intuitive capacity to see around the corners or beneath the surface. I drive sensate types crazy. Because it's just intuitive. I mean, I'm not involved whether it's right or wrong. It's like, oh, that's where it's going to land. And it's like, give me the facts. How'd you come up with that? Why are you saying that? Like, if I knew why I was saying it, I'd be a scientist and not a mystic. So, but if you don't know that there's these different functions, and you can feel very attacked. Why are they asking me to prove that? I don't know. I don't even know why I said it. So a lot of hurt doesn't have to happen if we can just say, okay, what function was I coming from? What function were they perceiving? And then it becomes really interesting. And as I said, we always get attracted to our inferior function or our fourth function, and that's when the real growth begins. So it's easier to determine which is a person's fourth undifferentiated function than which is his best. Our weakest points are the ones which stand out. But if we can see the fourth, or the inferior function, the first can be arrived at by inference. For instance, the man who has a shocking lack of tact, which means poor feeling. He doesn't feel it. Feeling is how we value. He doesn't get it. And his, overall sin is likely to predominantly be a thinking type, or the one quite incapable of logical thought is likely to function predominantly with feelings. And that's the cat and dog fight, okay? He hurt my feelings. He doesn't know what you're talking about. He's thinking, where's the logic? All I said was, and they go through the logical, because this creates great humor as long as you're not the one in the middle having your feelings hurt. But he doesn't, or she doesn't know what got hurt. So the person who gets stuck in a situation and can conceive of no possible way out is probably a sensation type. Whereas an intuitive is best on all sides by so many different possibilities that he has the greatest difficulty in remaining in any one situation. Okay? And like most original thinkers are intuitives on some level. Okay? Now, the only way of developing our lesser function is to give less energy to the first function, the thing we feel most comfortable with. And this is no easy task, but we can learn to do this. We can do an analysis, we can work on ourselves, we can educate, we can communicate with others. You can also take the Myers-Briggs test, which gives you, it's not 100% accurate, but it certainly gives you something to work with. Looking at your dreams. And guess what? So by knowing one's own type, and it has another significant meaning that is of enormous importance. It is through the inferior function or fourth function that evil creeps in unawares. Okay, I think I'll say that again. By knowing one's type, and has another significance of enormous importance. It is through the inferior or fourth function that evil creeps in unawares. So if one knows which is one's inferior function, one can easily be on guard to see that it does not lead one wildly astray. So our fourth function, being the one in which is the least, we may have a lot of it, we just don't know it, within our conscious power to handle, is inevitably lit or touched in some way by the unconscious. When suddenly it comes to our aid, it brings with us kind of almost a magical or mystical experience. The quality of the collective unconscious is in its train. So if one is an intuitive, Jung once explained that, like with the intuitive, that you must not expect the fourth function, sensation, which is usually what the intuitives inferior function is, sensation to be the sensation of a sensation type, which I think is interesting. On the contrary, it would also appear with a numinous quality, right? Because it doesn't happen that often, so, and you're not used to it. Or like a sensation type having a touch of intuition. I mean, they think God's talking to them. And with the intuitive type, it's like, yeah, okay, cool. But it's not numerous. Okay, so whatever is your first function or your most developed, that's normal. But a person whose inferior function it is, it's profound. So you'd have this incredible quality, but it also can be, you can be horrified. It's also an incredible quality. So, with the sensate, let's say, mastering everyday reality, it's not that they're so crazy about. They really have to work on that. They really have to learn that. They've got to do the accounts. They have to, be able to know what they need. They need to be able to work with time. Okay? And on the other hand, the sensation type, a sudden intuition appearing, and it like out of the blue, which the blue is interesting because the blue is the astral plane, lit by a glow from the unconscious, will seem heaven-sent. It may even be heaven-sent. Similarly, if a feeling type, to whom thinking is the utmost difficulty, is suddenly able to think something out, the result will apparently be this luminous clarity, while the thinker, whose feeling is touched, will be overwhelmed by the force of his unexpected emotion. And remember, emotion is not identical with feeling or any of the functions. Emotion always has its roots in the unconscious and manifests itself in the body. The emotion of the thinker whose sympathy is aroused is likely to be far more overwhelming than that of the feeling type. Ooh, we have a big hint here where one's personal shadow lies. And if we don't judge it and begin to look at it, we can get a little piece of gold there and some tremendous insight. Or we can start to feel like, no, that's my fourth function and I better really pay attention. Or we'll have a dream that really points to the fourth or inferior function and you better know, okay, that's the kind of commentary or the warning. It's like, wake up, you need to use this fourth function to get through this problem. This is what it needs. So this ill-developed fourth function is the gateway through which evil might come or might try to explode in some way. So it's not such an easy solution, but we can begin to recognize it. And we do. We just have, we have our own language for looking at this stuff. But that's what we begin to start looking at. It's like, oh, I get it. There before the grace of God go I. But what that really is you don't know it. And remember, that the unconscious, the dark, is it's really, really creative. So it can mean we can be creating monsters, or we can be creating beauty, or we can be creating form. Okay, we need to be, or we can be creating a mess in our lives because we swear it's the other person. If they would just do exactly what I want them to do, then all would be well. And it's most annoying when you want somebody to comply to your will, because then you'd be happy. Just give me the love I deserve. There's a deadlock right there. Demanding from a person something that you feel you deserve, not earned, that can cause a lot of trouble. But with this, and that's what the way it gets in, and we feel it with one another. You know, we do feel it, or someone will project something on that just isn't you. It's like, what? And that can hurt terribly. It's like, how could they think that? Really? Wow. But the poison dart goes in. And if you don't know yourself, you don't know who you are. I mean, you know, something like that happens to me. I always, first question is like, okay, where was my shadow on the day of? What happened? Where did that come from? I'm always willing to look in that mirror first. And then, and not just one look. You know, I give it at least 72 hours. 72 is a 9, and 9 is completion. So it's going to do many, many rotations, inside and outside. And then I can start feeling, wow, you know, that was either a terrifying insight, thank you for noticing that, or like, whoa, man, I am not carrying your bag of horseshit. And you send it back. And you take your gold. And this is brutal stuff. Because a lot of anger comes with, you know, because we're annoyed. We don't like it. Why do I have to feel this? Why do I have to think this? Why do I have to do this? Why don't they just shut up and love me the way I want? Or see me the way that I want? Or why don't they take my truth and what I perceive about them as true? This is not true. It's true because you're seeing it from your inferior function, or you're seeing it from your shadow aspect, but that's not true of the other person. Or it may have a touch of truth symbolically, but it's really not a fact. So when we start to look at these different things, okay, it's like when a woman cries, it blocks out the voice of the negative animus. So she kind of breaks out of a spell because there's real feeling. You know, the negative animus, which very often is the inferior function for a feeling type, it's just very opinionated. Yeah, but on the highest authority, blah, blah. And I mean, you start just shutting down. It's like, oh, let me get away from this. This is really going to be scary. Or like aggression is actually an avoidance of anger. And the hurt and the vulnerability that are part of it. You know, anger is justified. Brutal self-righteousness is not. So when you hear the brutal self-righteousness of a guaranteed, that's just shadow aspect. Because it doesn't heal. It's just, they think they're right. Whatever that might mean. So these are very important facts to, there we go with the sensation, okay, facts to start looking at and start exploring and start seeing and just say, okay, if I don't know about that fourth function and where I come from, you know, or what it's about, well, but, you know, it's you either ask a kid or a total stranger, okay? Don't ask your beloved because you'll wind up in a fight. You know, where do you at least have it kind of together? That's the function that the evil can get through. Let's say in the sensate, so you're not so aware of your body, and you eat the wrong things, and you don't take care of the body, and then before you know it, the body has to give us a boo-boo. so that we will pay attention to it. Remember, when something starts happening in the body, it's the body's way of healing. We don't feel the illness becoming. We feel it when the body demands change. That's pretty powerful stuff. So there we have it. Okay, next week then we're going to have we're going to continue with this fascinating subject matter of the shadow. The shadow knows. Take care, and go on my website and Facebook and sign up for the Blog Talk Radio so you get these, and tell the world, because that's how I know I'm doing something good for the world, or not good. Maybe it's my inferior function that's chatting away here, which is cool too. You got to know everything, right? Okay, take care. Have a fabulous week. It's going to be intense. Bye-bye.
Progressive presents Mindfulness with Flow.
You are a mighty fortress of supreme knowledge. Progressive Direct has not only revealed their rates, but those of their competitors. If you were any more in the know, you would be drowning in, the know.
Compare Progressive Direct rates with competitors' rates, because knowledge is power. Visit Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.